Okay, welcome to the FAST track. F.A.S.T stands for Fat Adapted Strength Training. Today I'm going to go over the food guidelines. If you want a copy of this handy little PDF file that I created that you can print out and put up on your refrigerator as a constant reminder of what you're trying to do more of and less of, email me, jason@reshapehealthandfitness.com, or just visit reshapehealthandfitness.com and you'll see front and center there's a way to contact me to subscribe and get a copy of this written PDF. This is a free course that I'm creating for online purposes. You can follow along every single day right here on YouTube or social media or on any podcasting app or wherever you're watching or listening to this. If you want to step up to the next level, go ahead and become an app member. You get a 90-day program for $90. It's $30 a month. You pay that in 3 monthly installments, just billed to your credit or debit card. And that will give you the tools that you need to track your progress along the way, to have a way to keep track of your workouts and your meal plans, to have some feedback with me as your coach, along with your other team members. I've built a community of like-minded individuals who are mostly graduates of my program that can go through this fat adaptive strength training along with you. So let me just say before we get started, this is coming from my frame of reference, being someone who lost a total of 75 pounds of body fat. And more importantly, I've maintained a new healthy weight now for over 10 years. And I've also helped hundreds of people just like you to get similar results. So if any of that resonates with you, go ahead and click the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, or click through and subscribe to my channel. I've posted over 175 videos at this point. There's years and years of content on all of my social media channels, and all of that's linked in at direct.me/reshape. So that is the place to be if you want to get maximum results from the time that you're spending at the gym, or get some guidance on how to eat healthy, or help track your measurements and progress along the way. All right, so we're going to dive into the dietary guidelines for good health. This is a program that I created, and this is based on the methods that I use for myself as well as with clients. You will very rarely hear me talk about calories. I don't deny the existence of calories. They are a way to measure the energy found in foods, but mostly you'll hear me talk about nutrient density versus energy density, because that's really what makes the key distinction that's going to help you. Just to say that we eat too many calories in this country is kind of like leaving too much information out. There's a reason why we're eating too much, and there's a reason why we're reprogramming our metabolism in a bad way across the board. The general public is becoming more aware now of problems with our food supply and policies, thanks to the efforts of organizations like Make America Healthy Again. JFK Jr. has just been nominated as the new head of the Food and Drug Administration, or Health and Human Services, rather. So this is all coming to the forefront. Now, these are things I've been studying for over a decade now. And in my circles, this is all kind of common knowledge. But I realize some of you tuning in may not be aware of all of this. And it's starting to make more and more sense to people, because the truth is out there. It just can't be denied anymore. So, all right, we're going to start off with the big 3 things that we need to avoid. Number 1, sugar. Secondly, grains or processed grains and flour. And the third one is industrial seed oils, also known as, quote, vegetable oils. All right, so let me go into a little detail on what each of those are. Sugar, I'm talking about not just the granulated table sugar, but anything that contains sugar or that turns into sugar. That's a key point, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I highly doubt that any of you listening are consuming sugar. You're just dipping into a bag of Dixie Crystals and eating it out of a spoon. Most of the sugar that you're taking in every day is coming from things that turn into sugar, or things that have sugar as an ingredient. And all 3 of these things that we're trying to avoid, sugar, flour, and vegetable oils, they're all additives. They're all products that have been created that are added to foods. And therein lies the problem. Sugar is not just granulated table sugar, but anything that contains sugar, turns into sugar, or contains it as a food ingredient. So there are a lot of things. So sugar is added to every type of processed food. Studies are showing that we're going to eat more if there's sugar present. Sugar, yes, does have some addictive properties. It causes a release of dopamine and other neurotransmitters in your brain, similar to their endorphins, similar to opiates. Okay, so I'm not going to go so far as to say that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. You may have heard that statistic before, but it does have an addictive properties, and we do go into a type of withdrawal when we don't have it. So glucose dependency is the main thing we're trying to interrupt with this program. We want to become fat adapted. That means able to access body fat as fuel. And in order to do that, you have to be less reliant on sugar as your fuel source for your day-to-day activities. So foods that you never would think of as containing sugar, ketchup is a perfect example. Ketchup by calorie is almost 80% sugar. And you don't think of that as being a high sugar product, or I didn't think of it that way. The type of sugar that's in ketchup, most commercial ketchup, is high fructose corn syrup, which is really even worse than regular table sugar, because in order to store that, it can't be stored in the muscle the way glucose is. Okay, glucose, most sugar, gets converted into glycogen and can be stored in the muscle to power your high output activities. If you're going to sprint or lift weights or something like that, and you need fast fuel, that's glucose. That can be stored in the muscle as glycogen and later used to power those type of activities. Fructose, fruit sugar, is converted in the liver. It goes through the liver. It's not processed in the muscle the way other types of carbohydrates are, and is a major contributor to fatty liver disease for that reason. So when we drink a soda, a Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew, Pepsi, or whatever, that has lots of fructose in it because it's a product called high fructose corn syrup. So a syrup has been boiled down to a concentrated form. That's something that can't exist in nature, and that overwhelms our body's ability to process it. Okay, so you want to avoid those things that contain sugar, high fructose corn syrup. The next category is the one that blows most people's mind: grains. Grains, especially flour and processed grains, but all grains in general. They're mostly worthless for human health. Okay, grains are historically kind of a fallback food. If there's nothing else around to eat, we can eat wheat or rice, oats, or corn. Those are examples of grains. Contrary to what you've heard, grains are not super beneficial for our health. Our original dietary guidelines for Americans that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, the food pyramid, which has since morphed into the MyPlate, recommends lots of grains, that should be the foundation of the healthy diet. So things like wheat and corn and oats and rice and the products made from those grains, like bread and pasta and cereal and all those types of things. Those are things to avoid. Those are things to limit. Not only do they convert into sugar, they also cause a lot of inflammation in your digestive tract. And when we grind those grains up with industrial machinery, turn them into flour, those particles are so small they can raise the blood sugar faster than table sugar. When your blood sugar is elevated, when insulin goes up, which is what happens when we consume sugar or flour or grains, blood sugar goes up, insulin spikes, that stops fat burning dead in its tracks. You cannot burn fat, body fat, or dietary fat for that matter, while your insulin is up. So avoid that insulin spike. We burn fat in our sleep. That's our default state. You want to continue to burn fat as far into the day or into the week as you possibly can. You want to limit your sugar intake and your carbohydrate intake. Next on our list of bad guys is the industrial seed oils, or AKA vegetable oils. These are not vegetables. I'm talking about things like soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil. You can't just squeeze these things and get oil out of it. Healthy sources of oils in nature, things like olives or avocados, you can just squeeze those and get the oil out of it. Those are fine. Most people don't use those. They're not in common ingredients. If you're not purposely avoiding these industrial seed oils, you're consuming more of them than you're aware of. Foods are fried in these. They are additives. Again, you're not drinking soybean oil, but if you flip around the label on your salad dressing, or other condiments, or any type of packaged or processed foods, it's going to contain most likely soybean or canola oil or some other type of industrial seed oil. These things have to be treated with chemical solvents. They have to be extracted using a high heat process, which causes them to become very unstable and rancid. When they get into the body, they promote a lot of systemic inflammation, which is not good for cardiovascular health. And they also create very poor quality cell membrane. That cell is not able to take in energy effectively the way that it should. So it just creates unhealthy cells, promotes inflammation, and a lot of free radicals. You've heard of antioxidants. Okay, so this is oxidation. These so-called healthy oils and grains, they've been promoted by the food industry for financial reasons, because they're cheap and they can be turned into every type of processed food that lines the shelves in the grocery store. Anything up and down the center aisles, like chips, cookies, crackers, cereal, bread, pasta, you name it. 90% of what is in the grocery store shelves now is not real food, and that's the problem. So just avoiding those three ingredients, that solves most of the problem. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that you're going to stop eating these things entirely for the rest of your life. That's not what I do. Abide by these guidelines I'm giving you 5 or 6 days a week, and then 1 or 2 days a week, or half a day, a couple of days a week on the weekend. Pretty much anything is fair game, as long as it's within a controlled window. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So if we're not going to eat those things, we're going to eat more real food instead of processed food. Real food, here's a list: meat, eggs, chicken, turkey, fish, any type of fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables. That's real food. Everything else is a fake food product, should be limited. So you want to prioritize protein. So first of all, aim for about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. Averages are going to be about 150 grams for women and about 200 grams for men. If it's a really big guy, or you're active and doing a lot of weight training, you can do men can do 250 grams. Divide that up over feeding every 4 hours or so throughout the day. That's going to be about 30 grams of protein per meal for women, 40 grams for men, up to 50 grams if you're a big guy or you're very active. Okay, so your best choices are going to be any kind of lean meat, fish, chicken, turkey, the things I mentioned. Quality dairy, like fermented types of dairy, like cottage cheese or plain Greek yogurt. Again, stay away from the ones that have sugar added to it. There are other ways to sweeten that yogurt up. I'll get back to that in a minute, but whey protein, that's fine. These don't all have to be whole food meals. You can do a couple of shakes with 2 or 3 meals, like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a shake and a bar maybe. That's fine. Doesn't all have to be 100% real food. There are some exceptions to that ultra-processed thing that I was talking about. But the idea is give your body some amino acids every 4 hours, because we don't have a mechanism to store these. I want you to separate in your mind, separate protein from fat and carbohydrates. Separate protein and calories, okay? There's 2 different things. Protein is not used as an energy source. We don't break that down and burn it for fuel. Protein is not fuel. Protein is the building blocks. That's what the car is made out of. The car runs on one of two types of fuel, gas or battery power. That's your energy. That's fat and carbs. Okay? The major scientific principle that I'm relying on here is something known as the protein leverage concept. And that basically states that we are driven to eat until our protein needs are met. This leads to overconsumption of energy calories when dietary protein intake is insufficient. Let me put that in everyday language for you. The more protein you eat, the less of everything else you're going to eat automatically. We have such a high need for protein. It's our major requirement every single day. The drive is to eat until we get enough protein. Then and only then will we stop eating. This is 100% always true. So take a food that's high in protein, like grilled chicken breast, for example. In order to get the same amount of protein out of something like a slice of pizza, for example, you would have to consume lots of fat and carbohydrates from the cheese and the dough and the sauce and all of those things. It's not necessary to eat that much fat and carbohydrate in order to get that same 30 to 40 grams of protein. Go with a food that's higher in protein. Limit your dietary carbs. If you want to burn maximum body fat and reprogram your metabolism to burn fat as your default fuel, keep the carbs low most of the time. Fat intake needs to just be kind of moderate. At this point, I hate to use the word keto or ketogenic because too many people have the idea that keto automatically means it has to be a high fat diet, which is not true. Ketogenic just means very low carbohydrate. So that's what I'm talking about most of the time. Very low carbohydrate most of the time. You don't have to stay on very low carbs indefinitely. There's a chance to do a refeed or refuel on the weekends. There's a refeeding phase there, 1 or 2 meals on Friday, maybe on Saturday, and then go back onto your program. That is strategic, by the way. It gives you a break mentally. It allows you to stimulate some of the hormones that are going to help you to burn body fat, to convince your body that it's not starving, and a host of other benefits. So along with your protein, you can combine any type of fibrous or nutrient-rich plant materials like vegetables, low-sugar fruit, nuts, and seeds. So just to make sure you're getting the micronutrients along with the fiber that you need, which most of these are very low in net carbohydrates because they have a lot of fiber. So vegetables could be anything like leafy green stuff like lettuce or spinach. This could be cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or cauliflower, other types of vegetables like celery and cabbage, etc. All of that's fair game. Unlimited amounts of vegetables and protein. Okay, what you need to limit is your fat and your carbohydrates if you want to tap into stored body fat. Also, the way you train plays a role in whether you're going to be burning battery power or body fat, or if you're going to be running on gasoline or glucose or carbohydrate. Your low sugar fruit, that is a lot of things that we think of as being vegetables are actually fruit. Tomatoes are an example. Cucumbers, peppers like bell peppers, olives, those are all avocados, those are all fruit. If it has a seed inside of it, it's a fruit. And a lot of those we think of as being vegetables, but they're actually not. Now, I cannot green light fruit because if I say eat all the fruit you want, you're going to go for the high sugar stuff like pineapples and bananas, and that is going to be counterproductive to trying to burn fat more efficiently. Don't do that. Don't wake up in the morning and blend pineapple juice and bananas and apples and pears and all this stuff and think you're doing something healthy because you're not. Fruit is a real food, but historically it was only available for a short period of time in the late summer and early fall when we need the signal to store body fat. Also, some types of fruit for most of our history we have not had access to. A lot of those are man-made or engineered to be larger, to have a higher sugar content. And thanks to our modern food processing, they're available anywhere in the world, any time of year. I'm of Northern European descent, so my great-great-grandparents probably never saw a banana or a pineapple in their life. Tropical fruit is not something that you want to be eating if you have insulin resistance or excess body fat, because it's part of the problem, not part of the solution. So that's my rant about fruit. Most of the healthy fats that we need can come from things like nuts or seeds, or, as I mentioned earlier, olives or avocados. Those are all monounsaturated fats. Those are the ones you want to concentrate on. Saturated fat is going to be included in some of your protein foods like beef or eggs, or maybe a slice of bacon that has some saturated fat in it. We don't want to target saturated fat. Some of it is fine, but you don't want to overdo it, because fat is an energy source that you either have to burn or store as body fat. So keep your fat a little lower, keep your carbohydrate very low, keep your protein, fiber, and nutrients as high as you can. You will be satisfied with less food, and you'll reprogram your metabolism to burn fat as fuel and store any carbohydrate or sugar coming in the muscle in the form of glycogen to power your weightlifting or training activities, rather than doing it the other way around, which is what a lot of you are probably doing now. You're burning sugar and storing the fat that you're eating as body fat, which you never tap into, because you're providing your body with a steady flow of sugar. It has no reason to burn its reserve fuel, and it won't. So that's it in a nutshell. More real food, less fake food. Be proactive instead of reactive. Plan things in advance. Do your grocery shopping on a weekly basis. Again, if you want to become an app member, I've got all the tools that you need. There's shopping lists there. There's recipes and meal plans and everything that you need to do this to the absolute best of your ability. Comment below if you have questions or something I can cover in a future video. I'll be back tomorrow with another update in the Fast Track program. And until next time, stay strong and enjoy the journey.